Pisces. If today has felt unusually quiet, if someone suddenly stopped reaching out, if your intuition keeps whispering, wait instead of react, you are not imagining things. Many people believe silence is never truly empty. Some spiritual traditions suggest that the universe sometimes creates distance on purpose. Not to hurt you, but to protect something inside you that hasn't finished healing yet. Tonight, July 22nd, could be one of those nights. Maybe a phone stayed dark longer than usual. Maybe a name you expected to see never appeared. Maybe you keep checking, then stopping yourself, then checking again. If that's you right now, take a breath. You're exactly where you need to be to hear this. By the end of this video, you'll understand 5 things. Why silence feels different today. Why one particular person may have gone quiet at this exact moment. 5 unexpected signs many believe point toward protection rather than loss. Why reacting too soon could cost you more than staying still ever would. And finally, the deeper lesson so many Pisces souls are quietly being asked to learn this season. So settle in, dim the lights if you can, and let's walk through this together, one gentle truth at a time. There's a kind of silence that feels normal, a missed text, a busy afternoon, nothing dramatic. And then there's a different kind of silence, the kind that has weight to it, the kind that seems to sit in the room with you, almost like it's saying something without using any words at all. If you're a Pisces, you already know this feeling better than most signs do. You were born tuned to what isn't said out loud. You notice tone shifts before anyone points them out. You feel a change in someone's energy days before they ever explain themselves. This sensitivity is often described as one of your greatest gifts, and also at times one of your heaviest burdens. Some spiritual traditions describe moments like today as periods of energetic distance. The idea is simple even if the feeling is complicated. Before certain truths can be revealed, a kind of space has to open up first. Not because anything is wrong, but because clarity rarely arrives in the middle of noise. Think about it this way. Have you ever tried to hear something important while a television blared in the background? You had to lower the volume or leave the room before you could actually understand what was being said. Many believe silence works the same way on a spiritual level. Sometimes distance is the universe turning down the volume on everything else so that one quiet truth can finally be heard clearly. You may notice this silence isn't just about one missing conversation. It might feel bigger than that. A general stillness in your week, fewer notifications, slower replies. Even your own thoughts might feel quieter than usual, like your mind is making room instead of racing the way it normally does. For a water sign like Pisces, whose emotional world tends to move like tides, pulling in, pulling out, always in motion, an unusual calm can almost feel unsettling. You're used to feeling everything at once, so when things go quiet, part of you might wonder if something is wrong. But consider this possibility instead. What if quiet isn't the absence of something good? What if quiet is the space where something good is being prepared? Some interpret unexpected stillness as a sign that important information, whether emotional, relational, or personal, is being organized behind the scenes before it reaches you. Like a letter being written before it's mailed, like a decision being made before it's spoken. This doesn't mean today will hand you answers gift wrapped and ready. It means today may be less about receiving something and more about noticing something. Noticing how you feel in the quiet, noticing what your mind drifts toward when nothing is demanding your attention, noticing which thoughts return again and again, almost like they're trying to get your attention. Because here's a truth many Pisces eventually learn the hard way. The things we chase the loudest are rarely the things that end up mattering most, and the things that matter most often arrive quietly, almost shyly, waiting for us to slow down long enough to notice them. There's something else worth mentioning here, something many people don't consider until they've lived through it themselves. Silence often feels loudest right before a shift happens, almost like the pause a room takes right before someone walks through the door. If you've ever waited for important news, you probably remember that strange stretch of time beforehand. The waiting itself seemed to have its own weight, its own presence. Many describe today's stillness in a similar way, as if something is gathering just out of sight, not yet ready to be seen, but already quietly in motion. It also helps to remember that Pisces is often symbolized by two fish swimming in opposite directions, forever caught between two pools. One fish reaches toward dreams, imagination, and emotion. The other reaches toward grounded reality and practical truth. On a day like today, that inner tension may feel especially present. Part of you might want to escape into distraction, filling the silence with noise, scrolling, or busy work. And another part of you might sense that leaning into the stillness rather than running from it is exactly what this moment is asking of you. So if today has felt strange, unusually still, maybe even a little lonely, try not to rush to fill that space. Not yet. Let's talk about why. Let's talk about the person. You know who they are. Maybe it's someone you've been thinking about for days. Maybe it's someone whose name keeps surfacing in your mind at strange hours, like 11:11 at night or right as you're falling asleep. Maybe it's someone who used to reach out first, and now, for reasons you can't fully explain, they haven't. This part can feel the hardest because silence from a person often gets mistaken for silence about you, as if their quiet is a verdict, as if their absence is an answer. But many spiritual perspectives suggest something gentler and honestly, something more realistic. People don't only go quiet because they've stopped caring. Sometimes people go quiet because they're processing something inside themselves that has nothing to do with you at all. A private struggle, a decision they're not ready to voice, a feeling they don't yet have the words for. Think about the last time you needed space before you could speak honestly about something. Maybe you weren't avoiding someone, you were avoiding saying something you weren't ready to say yet. If you've ever done that, then you already understand this person a little better than you think. There's also a timing element many traditions point to. Some believe that certain conversations simply aren't meant to happen before both people are emotionally ready to have them. Not because the universe is punishing anyone, but because timing protects outcomes. A conversation that happens too early before either person has clarity often goes worse than the same conversation held a little later, once both people have had time to think. You may have experienced this yourself. A talk you rushed into once only to wish afterward you'd waited, words said in frustration that you couldn't take back. An apology given too fast before the other person was ready to hear it. Consider whether this silence might be less about rejection and more about preparation. Preparation for a version of this connection, whether friendship, romance, or something in between, that's steadier than the version that existed before the silence began. There's another layer worth mentioning gently. Sometimes people withdraw not because they've lost interest, but because they've started to feel too much interest and that intensity scares them before they're ready to admit it out loud. Distance in these cases isn't disappearance. It's a pause, a breath before a decision. Of course, not every silence has a hidden meaning, and it's important to say that honestly. Sometimes people are simply busy. Sometimes life gets loud in ways that have nothing to do with feelings at all. This video isn't asking you to assign deep meaning to every unanswered text you'll ever receive. But if this particular silence has felt different, heavier, longer, paired with an inner sense that something is shifting beneath the surface, many people find comfort in viewing it as a quiet chapter rather than a closed book. There's an old idea repeated across many different cultures and belief systems that the people who matter most in our lives tend to circle back around at the right time, not necessarily the convenient time. A friendship that fades for a season sometimes returns years later deeper than before. A romantic connection that goes quiet sometimes finds its way back once both people have grown into versions of themselves capable of handling it properly. This doesn't mean every silence ends in reunion, but it does suggest that endings and pauses aren't always the same thing, even when they look identical from the outside. If you find yourself wondering whether this silence is temporary or permanent, notice that the question itself might be less important than how you choose to spend the waiting. Some people spend uncertain silences in anxiety, checking their phones every few minutes, replaying old conversations, searching for clues in things that were said weeks ago. Others use the same silence differently, choosing to focus on their own growth, their own peace, their own life outside of that one relationship. Many believe the second approach tends to attract clearer outcomes, not because of any magic involved, but simply because a calm, grounded person tends to make better decisions than an anxious, reactive one. Your job right now, according to this way of thinking, isn't to chase clarity before it's ready to arrive. Your job is to notice how you're spending this in-between time, because how you handle silence often shapes what comes after it. Which brings us to something many Pisces overlook when they're anxious. The signs, the quiet, easy to miss signs that many believe show up specifically during moments like this one. Let's slow down here because this part matters. If tonight is meant to mean something for you, these are the places many believe it will show up first. Not loudly, not obviously, but quietly, almost like a whisper you have to lean in to hear. Sign 1. Sudden silence. We've already touched on this, but it deserves its own moment. Sudden silence, especially from someone specific, is often the first sign people notice. One day the messages are steady, the next they slow, then stop. Many interpret this shift as a signal that something is being decided or processed on the other side of that silence. Not necessarily against you, sometimes for you in ways that haven't become clear yet. Picture a garden in early spring. Before anything blooms, there's a period where the soil looks empty, nothing visible is happening. But underground, roots are forming. Silence can work the same way. What looks empty on the surface may be doing quiet work beneath it. Notice how this silence has felt to you specifically. Some silences feel cold, distant, almost punishing. Others feel softer, gentler, like a held breath rather than a slammed door. Many believe the emotional quality of the silence matters more than the silence itself. A cold silence may be telling you something has genuinely ended. A softer, more neutral silence may simply be telling you that something is still being decided and hasn't closed yet. Sign 2. Repeating numbers. Have you noticed a certain number following you lately? Maybe it's 111, maybe it's 222, or 333, or 444. Maybe you glance at a clock and it's always the same digits, over and over until it starts to feel less like coincidence and more like a pattern. Some spiritual traditions describe repeating numbers as gentle nudges, small signals meant to catch your attention and pull you back into the present moment. The specific meaning varies depending on which numbers you're seeing, but the common thread across most interpretations is this. Pay attention, you're being noticed, and you're not moving through this moment alone. If you've been seeing a number pattern lately, you may want to notice when it appears. Is it during moments of doubt, right after you think of a certain person, right before you're about to make a decision? Many believe the timing of the number matters just as much as the number itself. Sign 3. Strange or vivid. Dreams have a strange way of surfacing exactly when we need them most. Maybe you've had an unusually vivid dream recently, one that felt more real than dreams usually do. Maybe someone specific appeared in it, saying something you can't quite remember but somehow still feel. Some believe our subconscious mind processes emotional truths at night that we're not ready to face during the day. A vivid dream, especially one involving someone connected to this silence, may be less about prediction and more about processing. Your inner mind working through feelings your waking mind hasn't fully sorted out yet. You don't need to interpret every detail. Sometimes it's enough to simply notice the emotional tone the dream left behind. Did you wake up feeling peaceful, unsettled, strangely hopeful? That feeling itself may be worth paying attention to. Sign 4. Feeling unexpectedly calm. This one surprises people the most because it seems to contradict everything logic tells us we should feel during uncertainty. If someone has gone quiet, shouldn't you feel anxious, restless, desperate for an answer? And yet, many people going through moments like this describe something unexpected. A strange, unexplainable calm. A sense that despite not having answers, everything is somehow still okay. Some interpret this calm as a kind of quiet reassurance, an inner signal that you're not meant to panic right now because you're not actually in danger of losing anything real. If it's real, it will find its way back to you. If it's not, this calm may be gently preparing you for a different, better path forward. Notice whether you felt any unexpected moments of peace lately, even briefly, even in the middle of missing someone or wondering about something. That peace may be worth trusting more than the anxious thoughts trying to talk over it. Think about the last time you felt genuine dread about something deep in your stomach, unmistakable and heavy. Compare that feeling to the lighter, quieter calm you might be noticing now. The two feel very different, don't they? Many believe your body often knows the truth before your mind catches up to it. If dread isn't present, that absence itself may be worth paying attention to. Sign 5. Delayed conversations. Finally, pay attention to conversations that seem to be arriving late, almost as if they were held back on purpose. A reply that took far longer than usual. A message that finally comes through after days of nothing. A conversation you'd almost given up expecting, showing up right when you'd stopped checking for it. Many believe delayed timing isn't accidental. A conversation that arrives exactly when you finally found your footing, again, often lands differently than the same conversation would have landed earlier, in a moment of desperation or fear. If a delayed conversation shows up for you soon, notice how different it feels to receive it now. Calm and grounded compared to how it might have felt a few days ago, anxious and waiting. These 5 signs taken together tell a quiet story, not a story of loss, a story of timing, a story that suggests some things need space before they can become clear, honest, and lasting. Here's something worth sitting with honestly. Pisces energy is deeply emotional, deeply intuitive, and deeply generous. But that same depth can sometimes lead to acting from emotion before thought has caught up. A message sent in a moment of anxiety. A decision made out of fear of losing something rather than out of clarity about what's actually true. Think of a time in your own life when you reacted too quickly. Maybe you sent a long message during a moment of hurt, one you wished you could take back an hour later. Maybe you made a decision out of panic, only to realize afterward that patience would have served you far better. This isn't about blame, it's about recognizing a pattern many people, especially sensitive, intuitive people, fall into repeatedly. Consider a simple image. A cup of tea that's been steeping too briefly tastes weak and unfinished. Give it time, and the flavor deepens, becomes richer, becomes exactly what it was meant to be. Emotional situations often work the same way. Reacting too soon is like drinking the tea before it's ready. The truth hasn't fully developed yet. What you're tasting isn't the whole story. Many spiritual traditions describe silence, waiting, and stillness as an active practice, not a passive one. Choosing not to react isn't weakness, it's often a quiet form of strength, one that protects you from decisions made out of fear rather than truth. If today has tempted you to reach out first, to demand an answer, to fill the silence with your own words before it's ready to be filled naturally, consider pausing a little longer, not forever, just long enough to let today's stillness finish doing whatever quiet work it's doing. There's a story worth considering here, one you may have heard in a different form before. A traveler once stood at a crossroads, unsure which path led home. Anxious to arrive, they took the first path that looked familiar, only to find themselves lost for hours, retracing steps, growing more exhausted with every wrong turn. Had they simply waited a little longer, watched a little more carefully, they would have noticed the correct path revealing itself naturally. Without needing to guess at all, many spiritual teachings return to this same idea again and again. The fastest way forward is rarely the path chosen out of panic. It's the path chosen after patience has done its quiet work. Ask yourself this: if you already knew with complete certainty that everything would work out the way it's meant to, would you still feel the need to rush? Every difficult moment tends to carry a lesson hidden somewhere inside it, even if that lesson isn't obvious right away. For many Pisces soul, this particular season seems to circle around one theme again and again. Trust. Not blind trust, not naive trust. A deeper, more grounded kind of trust, trust in timing, trust in your own inner voice, and trust that you don't need constant reassurance from outside yourself to feel secure. Pisces energy often gives so much to others. You listen closely, you feel deeply, you forgive easily, sometimes too easily. And in giving so much of yourself outward, it's easy to lose track of the quieter relationship you have with your own inner world. This season, many believe, is quietly asking you to turn some of that attentiveness inward, to listen to yourself the way you so naturally listen to everyone else, to trust your own calm even when the people around you seem uncertain, to set gentle boundaries not out of coldness but out of self-respect. Boundaries and intuition often grow together. The more you trust your inner voice, the easier it becomes to know when to give space, when to speak up, and when to simply wait and watch. This isn't a lesson learned once and finished. It's a practice, one that deepens every time you choose patience over panic and self-trust over self-doubt. If this season has felt uncertain, consider that uncertainty itself may be the lesson's classroom, not something to escape quickly, but something to sit inside of, gently, until it teaches you what it came to teach. Before we close tonight, let's take a few quiet moments together. Wherever you are right now, allow your shoulders to soften. Let your breath slow down just slightly without forcing anything. Think gently about the silence you've been noticing lately, not with anxiety, just with curiosity, as if you're a quiet observer of your own life rather than someone caught in the middle of it. Ask yourself softly, what am I being asked to trust right now? Is it trust in another person's timing? Trust in my own patience? Trust that some answers arrive only once I stop demanding them? There's no need to answer out loud or even answer fully right now. Sometimes simply asking the question is enough to plant a seed that grows into clarity later in its own time. Take one more slow breath, and when you're ready, gently return your attention to the room around you, carrying this quiet reflection with you into whatever comes next tonight. Whether today's silence is simply coincidence or something you personally see as meaningful. Perhaps its greatest gift is the opportunity to hear your own inner voice more clearly. Sometimes the answers we seek become easier to recognize when we stop chasing them. If someone has gone quiet, let that quiet exist without rushing to fill it. If your intuition has been whispering, wait, consider honoring that whisper a little longer. Not because you're powerless, but because some of the most meaningful moments in life arrive only after we've learned to be still. You don't need every answer tonight. You simply need to trust that you're exactly where you're meant to be, even in the not knowing. If tonight's reflection resonated with you, consider giving this video a like, so more Pisces hearts can find their way here too. Subscribe if you'd like to walk through moments like this together, month after month. And if you'd like, share your own experience in the comments below. Has someone gone quiet in your life recently? Have you noticed any of these signs yourself? Until next time, Pisces, trust the silence. It may be saying more than you realize.